Hey, welcome to The Explainer. This is where we take a look at these massive history-changing events and really try to build the story from the ground up. Tora, Tora, Tora. That's tiger, tiger, tiger. Just picture it, 7:53 a.m. on a quiet Sunday morning. That's the coded message that goes out from Flight Commander Mitsuo Fuchida. And what it meant was incredible. They had pulled off the impossible. They had achieved complete and total surprise. So, December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. This is the day. This American naval base is about to get hit by an attack so perfectly planned, it's not just going to wreck the U.S. Pacific Fleet, it's going to violently drag a very hesitant America right into the middle of World War II. All right, so let's get right into it. And we're not going to start with the big picture politics. Nope. We're going right to the ground, to the human experience of that morning. I mean, the exact moment the entire world just changed forever. So try to picture this. It's just a little before 8 a.m. An officer, he's at breakfast, hears this weird roar outside. He steps out, checks his watch, 7:55. Literally 2 minutes later, that Sunday morning calm is just gone, obliterated. Japanese planes are screaming in, flying maybe 20 feet off the ground, and just opening up. At that point, there was no chance to sound the alarm, and honestly, no need. The attack was already happening. But here's the thing, and this is so important. An attack like this doesn't just happen out of nowhere, right? It wasn't a random event. So we've got to rewind a bit. Let's look at the years of rising tension that really set the stage for all of this. You see, for years, Japan was expanding its empire, and that put it on a direct collision course with the United States. And it became this kind of tit for tat. Japan makes a move, the U.S. hits back with an economic countermove. But the real breaking point? That was the oil embargo in July of 41. This thing cut off over 90% of Japan's oil. Their military basically had, maybe 6 months of fuel left in the tank? And then came the final straw, the hull note. This was America's last demand, basically saying, get completely out of China, no negotiations. For Japan, that wasn't a note, that was an ultimatum. And this all ties back to this big idea Japan had, the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. Basically, they wanted to build their own self-sufficient empire. They needed oil, they needed rubber, all these resources from Southeast Asia. And what was the one major thing standing in their way? Yep, the United States Pacific Fleet, just sitting right there at Pearl Harbor. So here's the crucial point. Japan's leaders felt like they were backed into a corner. I mean, look at their choices. Option 1, give up their conquests, totally lose face. Option 2, do nothing and let the oil embargo completely crush their economy. To them, both of those were basically suicide. So they looked at option 3, a massive, high-risk military gamble. Take out the U.S. Navy in one shot and buy themselves the time they thought they needed to build that empire. Okay, so they made their choice. Now let's get into the plan itself. Because how they put this incredible operation together, it was just breathtakingly precise. The guy who masterminded all this was Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. And Yamamoto is such a fascinating character. He'd actually studied at Harvard, served in Washington, D.C. He knew America. He knew its industrial might. He even famously warned his own government, saying something like, I can run wild for 6 months, but after that, I have no confidence. He knew it was a losing bet in the long run. But he was bound by duty, so he planned the most devastating first strike he could possibly dream up. And his strategy really boiled down to these 3 key things. This wasn't just, hey, let's send some planes. This was a total revolution in naval warfare. It was all about months of super specialized training, absolute, total secrecy, and then concentrating the firepower of 6 massive aircraft carriers into one knockout punch. And the technical challenges they had to overcome were huge. For example, Pearl Harbor is pretty shallow. Any normal torpedo you drop from a plane would just get stuck in the mud. So what do? Their engineers brilliantly designed these special wooden fins to attach to the torpedoes, making them run true just under the surface. And to get through the thick armor on the battleships, they literally took 16-inch naval cannon shells and converted them into massive aerial bombs. I mean, this was custom-made weaponry for a single mission. Now get this, on the exact same day the U.S. was issuing its final diplomatic note, this huge Japanese fleet was already slipping out of a remote bay. While the diplomats were still talking, the attack was already underway. For almost 2 weeks, this armada of 6 carriers steamed across the stormy North Pacific, completely silent. No radio signals, just a ghost on the ocean, heading for Hawaii. Okay, so now we're back to that Sunday morning, December 7th. It's 6 a.m., about 230 miles north of the island of Oahu. The decks of those Japanese carriers just erupt into controlled chaos. The first wave, 183 planes, starts roaring to life, lifting off and turning south. Their target is just over the horizon. And this first wave was like a terrifyingly well-rehearsed orchestra of destruction. You had the torpedo bombers and the high-level bombers going straight for the big prizes, the battleships lined up on Battleship Row. At the exact same time, you had dive bombers and the legendary Zero fighters just sweeping across the airfields, their job being to destroy the American planes on the ground before they could even take off and fight back. But even in that total shock and chaos, you had these incredible acts of bravery. I mean, with their own planes literally on fire on the runways, you had ground crews climbing into parked bombers to man the rear machine guns. You had Marines and sailors firing back with anything they could get their hands on. Pistols, automatic rifles, just desperately trying to fight back against this overwhelming attack from the sky. So, by the time the last Japanese plane landed back on its carrier, the numbers told the story. From a purely tactical perspective, the attack was a stunning, almost unbelievable success for Japan, and they did it with remarkably few losses. But, and this is a huge but, that incredible short-term victory was about to set off a strategic disaster of epic proportions. See, the whole point of the attack was to be a deterrent, right? To hit the US so hard that they'd stay out of Japan's way. Instead, it did the absolute opposite. And the consequences? Well, they would reshape the entire world. And President Roosevelt, in his address to Congress and the nation, he just captured the feeling perfectly. The key word he used was infamy, and that was so important because it frames the attack not as some honorable act of war between two nations, but as a treacherous, backstabbing ambush. That one word just galvanized American outrage like nothing else could have. I want you to think about a number. Just one. That's how many days it took for the entire debate over American isolationism. A debate that had been raging for years to just disappear completely. One day. The attack united the entire country with a single furious purpose. The vote for war in the Senate? It was unanimous. In the House, there was only one person who voted against it. Just like that, America was at war. But looking back, you can see how Japan actually made some huge mistakes right in the middle of their biggest victory. The guy who led the attack, Mitsuo Fuchida, was apparently furious that they didn't launch a third wave to finish the job, because they missed some really critical targets. They didn't hit the submarine base, they didn't hit the repair yards, the very yards that would salvage and fix a lot of those sunken ships. And the biggest miss of all? They didn't touch the giant fuel depots. If they had destroyed those oil tanks, U.S. naval operations in the Pacific would have been crippled for a year, maybe more. And that, right there, is the ultimate terrible irony of Pearl Harbor. The one attack that was designed to protect and secure Japan's new empire was the very thing that guaranteed its total destruction, because it awoke what Yamamoto himself feared, the sleeping giant, the full, furious, and now totally focused power of the United States. So it leaves us with this huge question, one that leaders and historians still wrestle with today. What's the bigger lesson here? The danger of underestimating your enemy, or the incredible power of a nation that's been awakened? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.